let's say good day to everybody. We're going to start for the sake of time. I'm George Mastorakos from the Athens National and Kapodistrian University, and I have the pleasure of chairing this session together with my good friend João Felipe Raposo from the University of Lisbon. Is that right? Absolutely. A person with good experience in diabetes, and we have the great pleasure to introduce Professor Andrew Behnke from the University, Tuck University at Virginia, who is going to talk to us about looking into the future of the diabetes management. I guess we're going to listen a lot about AI. Is that right? A little bit, some. Okay. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
So we can gain some time for having good discussions afterwards.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Yes. Yes, it's good. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to the American Association for the Study of Diabetes, Professor Sheltut, and all her hospitality. I love coming to Egypt and Cairo every year. I missed last year, but I'm so glad to be here. I am going to talk about the future. And I'm not going to talk about obesity drugs. Dr. Milenkovic will tell you all about that. And I'm really not going to talk a lot about AI, because another professor will talk about that. I'm going to talk about two things that will change in the world for diabetes, okay? Success for suboptimal control in type 2 diabetes, because I'm the chief of Virginia Tech University. I have some research grants which I am disclosing right here, and if you want, you may take pictures of these slides. This is allowed. This is my university, the Virginia Tech University in Roanoke, Virginia, the Carilion Clinic. We have an endocrinology section. I am the chief. We have 6 endocrinologists. We have a robust training program and a robust research program. We also have several international collaborations, most recently with the University Nicolae Testamentantu in Moldova, but maybe we can get a relationship with the University of Cairo and have a students exchange. So, what is the problem we have today in the world? Diabetes, mellitus, type 2, yes? Uncontrolled. In the United States, about 15% of diabetes is uncontrolled. What is uncontrolled? Glycohemoglobin greater than 9%. In the United States, if you have glycohemoglobin greater than 9%, the government makes a record of it. You have to disclose this. So we try to get this less than 9%. A lot more people. I was talking to my colleague in UK, and he says up to 50% of some of his patients in a nephrology clinic have uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. In the United States, it's about 20%. But these patients have 10 times the amount of microvascular complications. And many of these present in a primary care situation. You all know it, yes? How do you take care of these patients? So let me give you a case. 45-year-old man, type 2 diabetes for 8 years, neuropathy, proteinuria. He takes insulin glargine, metformin, glimepiride, checks his blood sugars intermittently. But he forgets. He says the blood sugars are all over the place. And I apologize, I'm using United States units for glucose, milligrams per deciliter, but hemoglobin A1C is 13%. Glucose is quite high, up to 20. So what do you do for this person? Many times in America, we send them to the endocrinologist. And this is the number one reason for endocrinology referral is uncontrolled diabetes. It's not to get a pump, it's not patient preference, it's uncontrolled diabetes. About 60% of our referrals that we get as endocrinologists are for uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. We're so busy, you have no time for this, right? There's so many patients, it's crazy to have this consultation. So the old way was to wait until the hemoglobin A1C is 9, refer to endocrinology, see the patients in 3 months, and then get angry and frustrated when they come back and nothing's better. So how can we change this? Collaboration. Collaboration is going to be a cornerstone of future diabetes care. Endocrinologists, physicians are not enough to take care of this worldwide pandemic. We need to collaborate and allow other people, not physician people, to help with type 2 diabetes. So what do I mean? Well, let me talk about pharmacists, because this is the role that we use in our clinic and our area to use clinical pharmacists to make changes. This has been going on for about 20 years. The first study was in Asheville, North Carolina, and they had patients with diabetes assigned to a pharmacist who provided education and support. And they found that they reduced the A1C about 50%, but also saved about $1,000 to $2,000 per person in the program. How did they do that? Well, they lowered hemoglobin A1C, but they also reduced hospitalization, emergency room visits, and calls to the doctor, because the pharmacist, in many times, can give you the answer that you don't need a doctor's consultation for. This has been done many times over, and if you look, maybe this pointer will work, I hope. Yes, maybe. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, if you look, you can see the A1C in the studies from top to bottom gets higher. Initially, these were patients who had pretty good glucose control, 7.5. Now, the most recent studies, we are accepting patients with average A1C 9, average A1C 10, average A1C 11, very poorly controlled, sent to the pharmacist, and significant reduction in glycemia without any additional work from the physician. So how does a pharmacist do this? They counsel on new medication. They spend time with the indications, how to dose it, how to put the pen on the insulin, what time to take it. They also counsel on devices. And I'll talk about devices as the second thing that's going to change your life. Devices. Many of our pharmacists, they are getting the devices and putting them on the patients themselves. In the United States, probably in your country as well, you can get the device, CGM, without a prescription. Pharmacists can help you put it on and get it downloaded to your device. Assessment of medicine adherence. So the pharmacist can say, let's see your pills. Bring them to me, and I will count them to make sure you're taking that. Medicine affordability. In the United States and other countries, these drugs cost money. Sometimes they're too expensive. The pharmacist knows what programs to go to, what cards to get, what coupons. Maybe you change it from Humalog to Novolog and you get a reduction. The pharmacist can really help with that. So we did this in our clinic. We got about 900 patients. We get about one pharmacist to manage 200 patients. And they were visited quarterly with a pharmacist. And again, we saw, just like Asheville, $2,000 to $3,000 savings, lowering hemoglobin A1C, and a 25% reduction in hospitalization. So this is 1 year data. A1C average starting 10%. At the end of the 3-month time, A1C 8.1%. Again, without any work from the physicians, without any new meds, just medicine compliance. So significantly helpful in patients with type 2 diabetes. And here it is, how many patients had an A1C of greater than 9? 72%, they were sent to us. At the end of the study, only 19%. So collaboration needs to happen. Now you might say, okay, Dr. Behnke, this is really good because you live in America and you have progressive policies and collaboration. But this doesn't happen in Egypt. Yes, it does. I have an example of not one, but 2 studies, Egyptian studies within the past 5 years. One by Dr. Hassan Farak Mohammed and one by Dr. Abdul Hama Abid. These are both clinical pharmacy programs on the follow-up with type 2 diabetes. And these results, published in good journals, okay, in English, are fantastic. So this is the one from Dr. Abid. The A1C, as you can see, hopefully started at 8.6, with a pharmacy intervention in Egypt down to 7. Also, lower cholesterol. Also, lower triglycerides. Also, lower body weight. These are significantly powerful things that are being done in Egypt in clinical studies, but maybe this should become more of the standard. And this is Dr. Mohammed's study, which was not only is very well designed, it was a crossover study. So the intervention group had the help with the pharmacist, and then they crossed over, the group that didn't had. And you can see A1C, 9.5, 7. Not only that, Dr. Abid looked at cost. And of course, there is some cost to train the pharmacists, to have them, counseling, print out flyers and things like that. But if you look at the total cost, and this is in Egyptian pounds, significantly less cost by 5,000 pounds per person in the person with the education, even if you include the amount of money you're spending for the pharmacist. So not only do you get glucose control, you have a financial benefit with pharmacy collaboration in Egypt. So this really is going to be the way the world's going to do it, whether it's with pharmacists or with nurses, collaboration. But now, for the first time in forever, we have CGM. And CGM is the second thing that's going to change the diabetes world in the future. CGM will be the way to check glucose. No one's going to check finger sticks anymore. This is coming. And I know it seems a million miles away, but CGM is revolutionary in the world. This is a graph showing CGM prescriptions over the past 10 years. And you can see the market share has just grown exponentially with CGM. I travel around the world, and sometimes I go to very remote places. I was in a place called Transnistria. Does anyone know what Transnistria is? It's actually a Russian society, kind of a breakaway society. And I went there because they wanted me to talk about diabetes. This is a very poor place and not a lot of control. And I started talking about Libre. And one of the doctors said, I know Libre, I have one. My daughter has diabetes, and so she connects with this. So wherever you go in the world, CGM is there. Okay, maybe not as prevalent, but it will be. In the United States, American Diabetes Association recommends all patients, every patient with type 1 diabetes should have CGM. And patients with type 2, especially who are on insulin, who are not at goal, should have CGM. So when a patient comes to my clinic, and I see them and A1C is greater than 9, everybody gets CGM by the pharmacist that day. CGM can last up to 2 weeks. So even they just 2 weeks of data, it helps. So do CGM devices work? Yes, of course. This study by Roy Beck at the JABE Diabetes Center looked at CGM in patients with type 2 diabetes on multiple insulin. And you can see, no matter what the hemoglobin A1C was to start with on the control group with the dotted line, significantly better results at 24 weeks. And this is a graph of other things that happen, because you could say, okay, yeah, they got better glucose control, but you gave them more insulin or you gave them more medicine. No, the total daily dose of insulin was unchanged. The ratio of insulin was unchanged. The number of boluses was unchanged. The weight actually decreased, and hypoglycemia was unchanged. So CGM works magic in patients with type 1, but now also with patients with type 2 diabetes. How about basal insulin? A lot of patients are just on basal insulin. Will CGM help them, patients with type 2 diabetes? Well, again, this is another study done a few years ago by the JABE Diabetes Center, and looking at patients with type 2 diabetes on basal insulin. And yes, the hemoglobin A1C went from 9 to 8 just by incorporating CGM versus fingerstick glucose monitoring. So CGM can help in type 2 diabetes, single insulin, multiple daily insulin. So this continuous glucose monitor, is it a tool or is it an intervention? This paper, a very good paper by Dr. Wright, says it's really both. You need to have the tool, but you also have the training that goes with it. For example, if you tell your patient, go to the pharmacy, get a CGM, use it, maybe they don't know how to use it, maybe they don't know where to put it, maybe they don't know how to read the data. But if you have someone like a pharmacist, go over it with them, insert it the first time, show them how to interpret the data, it is significantly better. So, let's get back to this study about this man, 45-year-old man, and instead of just sending him to endocrinology in the capital city, why don't you enroll him in a program, give him a continuous glucose monitor, have the clinical pharmacist check on him maybe every week and adjust his meds as necessary. And then at 3 months' time, he comes back, Glycated hemoglobin is 7.8%. Glucose is 160. Great. And you see him back in 3 months. A1C is still 7.8. No hyperglycemia. No hypoglycemia. So this is how it should be, right? And this is how it is. And if you don't believe me, here is the studies of the program we have, which is very similar to the case you just saw. Diabetes performance improvement patients, A1C greater than 9. They have initial consultation with a physician. CGM is applied. Diabetes education service for nutrition. Weekly check-ins. 70% of patients complete this. Before I finish this, let me tell you, 70% of patients will do very well. 30% of the patients will not. And this is universal. This is seen by myself, by people in Baltimore, and ever. There's 30% of patients with type 2 diabetes that are just not ready for good control. They're just not ready. But majority of them are. A majority of them, if you get into a program, will do well. So this is the data that we showed in our clinic. Again, our mean A1C was 11.8. So these, I did 13, 14, 15. Oh boy. Okay, yeah, 5 minutes. Got it. All right. A1C, 3 months with a CGM pharmacist program, 7.8. Without any change in insulin dose, without any change in BMI, and definitely without any hypoglycemia. And this is the graph that we shared at the ADA. Again, A1C 11, 12 before the program, 7 or 8. Collaboration with CGM. Now, we got some long-term data, and we're going to publish this. Should be out at the end of the year in Diabetes Spectrum. For the same thing, what happens after 3 months later when you send them home and you don't have this intense interaction? And we were worried that the A1C would go back up. But as you can see, the A1C went from 11.7 down to 7 and stayed at 6 months. 7. The education, the interaction, the knowledge, and the relationship that these people have, it's not long-term. 3 to 6 months is all you need. So again, the old approach, no insulin intervention, refer to endocrinology, see them back, leads to frustration. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, love it. It's a new thing. Incorporate pharmacist management. If you have one, start an incorporation program. Technology tools, CGM, virtual visits. Again, these can be all done anywhere. And it's possible for someone in Cairo to take care of a patient in a remote village as long as they have a smartphone and access to a pharmacist. So there's a great ability to take care of patients with difficulties in transportation. We start with weekly contact. We have a big randomized controlled study. We're going to go to bi-weekly contact. We're not sure if weekly or bi-weekly contact is best. But really no long-term follow-up is needed, 3 to 6 months, and the physician's time is minimalized. So what do you want to do if you want to get one of these programs? Well, you need to have physician leadership. The pharmacists are not prescribing medicine. They are not prescribers. They are not diagnosing. All they are doing is helping to adjust doses of medicine that have already been prescribed. So the physician is still in charge. The physician is still a leader, but you need diabetes education with nutrition, generally from nursing, and then, of course, pharmacy, CGM, and frequent virtual communication. So, what should you do? What can you take away to be a future physician for diabetes? Well, if you don't have a pharmacy diabetes, if you have a pharmacy diabetes program, like these programs that have been recommended or proven to be helpful in Egypt, use it. Use your clinical pharmacists if they're there. If you don't, consider starting one. Well, you might say, how do I start a program? Well, here's my email. You can email me, and the whole recipe with the plan is just accepted for publication in Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism. So that will be out, and the whole article will have the list of how you start it, when you see the patients. That is just, I sent the final proof in, so that should be hopefully in the October or maybe November issue, so you can get that access live. If you don't have that, send me an email, I will direct you there. So, you know, in America, we love Disney, and Disney is all full of hopes and dreams in the future. So what you have to do is all this tension you have and worry about patients with type 2 diabetes, just let it go. Let it go and embrace the future. Invite others to collaborate in your treatment of type 2 diabetes, and also you need to embrace technology. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for this informative talk. And I don't know if we're going to go into questions right away or you can do it. We can do them together at the end.
Okay.
Andrew, we're going to do it at the end. Okay, please join us.